Alright, today we're talking about how to find a good sub. And this is a follow-up video from our how to find a good dom. So taking a lot of the same principles that we presented in that video and flipping it to the other side of the slash. And what you're going to find is that a lot of the things are similar because we're looking for good partners, but there are a few unique things that we look at from the dominant side. And I did this in collaboration with Andy Wells. You are very familiar with him by now if you've been following this channel for a while. If you're not, follow the link down below, go check out his channel, great guy. And then my co-author Mario Tubone, who I wrote Enter the Dom with. And this video is less of a step-by-step how-to guide like you usually find in a lot of my articles, but more of a casual conversation of very unique things that the three of us might be looking for based on our many years of experience. So if you're just starting out, this may be a little different for you, but it's a good idea to see what somebody who has had a bunch of experience looks for in another person. And if you're very curious about the very particular things that I look for, you can head over to my FetLife like I mentioned in the video. I'm Brandon the Dom. Let's jump to the conversation. For any guys watching this that are maybe new to being Doms, we might have like a list of things that we're looking for or be filtering very hard for somebody. And that's because we have the ability to go on dates like we have those social skills to do that, and we're okay if we're not taking the very first submissive that comes across us. So if we sound like we're being too judgmental, also realize that we have a lot of experience and can be that judgmental.
We're picky.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it's not enough to just call me daddy,
Yeah. What are some of the things that you guys are looking for? I said communication, like good communication. I'm looking for a submissive that will reply to messages, will share her feelings, will tell me when she's nervous or shy, will tell me what she wants and what she doesn't want. What's another one you guys are looking for?
Clear-mindedness, meaning exactly knowing what this person wants out of this experience, of this encounter, or this relationship. So I don't know, when someone walks in with, imagine you enter a shop, right? And you have no idea what you want to buy. You're just cruising around. Well, how about this? How about that? No, I'm really more looking for inspiration. But it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure I can do pretty much. I mean, this is quite a statement in this world, because when you think you know everything, then someone comes out with a dark, obscure new kink. But it's literally like, okay, would you like to try this? Would you like to try that? No, I don't know. Meanwhile, when someone says, no, I'm looking for this and I want this, I'm like, that's the goal.
So what you're screening at is the women or the submissives that I call window shoppers. The ones who just want to like talk about BDSM and say like, oh, I'd try that. And you're like, cool, let's try it. What do you want to try? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Or the ones that say, I need to talk more first. And you go, cool, let's talk more. And then you talk for days. And then they're still like, oh, I need to talk more. And then I'm just like, nah, if you're not willing to at least meet for a coffee or to talk in person or something. And I find that there are a lot of those that are just, they haven't worked up the courage to be ready to do some BDSM. And fair enough, very reasonable, but that's just like not the people that I'm looking for.
Yeah, of course. I go to the extreme of saying perhaps at the beginning, the three of us were willing to entertain this type of behavior. We were like, finding our own footing. So it's perfectly normal. And to the people out there listening to this, I encourage you to do that because this it's like I don't know, a ritual or how it's called, a graduation ceremony, something like that, where you have to go through those to those circles in order to find out exactly more things about you. At the beginning, I will always talk about the vending machine dom, and I think this term came out in this pod quite a good amount of times. But it's literally like when you're trying to play, it's like, okay, maybe you're into shibari. Okay, let's try shibari. Oh, wait, no, you're more into spanking. Let's do spanking, so.
Yeah, when you're willing to do basically just anything.
I think I'll add, when I was like coming into this podcast, because I knew what the topic was going to be, I was like trying to think about the stuff that we said in the last podcast was the reverse, what we're looking for in a good Dom. And a lot of the things that we said in that podcast could just be generalized to like, what are you looking for in a good partner? And a lot of it applies to this same podcast here. So if you go watch that one, like listen to a lot of stuff, communication, all of that jazz, like applies here too. But I think there's something specific here where I have a bias because I am non-monogamous. And so that means when I'm meeting up for dates and looking for a partner, I'm not actually going to be as judgmental. I'm going to be much more open to who that person is or maybe what they want to do. And I'm just going to judge how far I want to go with that person in the relationship, how deep I want to go with them. If I'm thinking that maybe this person's a long-term partner, just as we said in the last podcast, where green flags are basically looking for the same values that you share with that person, that's what I'm going to be looking for in this person, in the submissive. Do they share values with me? And are my non-negotiables not going to be a problem? Those things being like, hey, I'm non-monogamous. If you want to be monogamous, that's fine, but our relationship's not going to last forever, especially if you want to be monogamous at some point. Or like having kids. If you want to have kids in the future, fantastic. I don't. So that means there's an expiration date at some point in the future of our relationship. And there's been like women that I've gone on dates with and even had as play partners, and our personalities don't entirely jive all the way. But I don't care as much because I'm spending only limited time with her. And maybe we're just doing bedroom activities, in which case we got chemistry there. But outside of that, not so much. That's fine. I accept you as you are at this level. If I want to go deeper with you, I'm going to have some more stipulations and things that I'm looking for and screening for.
Yeah, and you can basically be grateful for whatever type of dynamic or relationship you have with that person. Like I have someone that I'm seeing right now that I would say is basically a relationship, like very, very deep, very connected, very shared values. She's a wonderful part of my life. I have someone else that I'm seeing that's very casual, very friends with benefits from the beginning. She said she wanted friends with benefits. I was like, beautiful, that suits me. And it's very casual. And I can be grateful for that. I will send her a message and say, I'm grateful for the wonderful sex we had. I'm grateful that you're open and honest with me. I'm grateful for the BDSM that we're exploring together. You can sort of delve into little bits of friendship and stuff like that and enjoy that. Not every relationship, if you're non-monogamous, has to be full on, love of my life and all of that kind of stuff. So I really like that too. Yeah, it's a little bit more flexibility. And I think the three of us do that anyway. We're a little bit more open to whatever type of submissive we're meeting, whatever type of woman that we're meeting. And then we're a little bit more of a facilitator type dom or a pleasure dom or a daddy dom. It's like, who are you? And I'm going to then love you for that and within reason give you some of the things that you want and adjust my play style around you. And not completely, because then you become a vending machine dom who just dishes out whatever the hell the submissive wants and has none of his own stipulations or enjoyments or boundaries or anything. So yeah, I think the three of us like are a little flexible.
That's Andy is a great point, because we're not talking about that. Depending who I have in front of me, I change my whole behavior, personality, and style. Because even in the book that me and Brandon wrote, we identified different types of dom, and it's like a video game character. It's not that you have only one skill tree fully maxed, full strength, and that's it. You also have dexterity, you have stamina, you have intelligence, and every dom is, well, what is your style? Is daddy? Is play flout, primal, rigger? So depending on who you have in front of you, you tend to adapt, but see not like you're morphing, see more like you're like a play do. You just wrap yourself around, still maintaining your consistency.
Yeah, you're just trying something else with that person.
Yeah,
Yes,
but it's always
exactly.
within like your limits and boundaries. Like you're never breaking outside of those to morph to that other person. You're like, okay, I'm willing to do what you want to explore and we can enjoy that. And maybe we can do some of the things that I really enjoy too. Let's explore that together. But if they're coming to me and asking something that I definitely don't want to do, well, sorry, I'm not bending now towards that.
And then that applies in reverse too. Like if we're going to talk about like finding a good sub, and it's not so much about good sub, finding a sub who's a good fit for you. Maybe that's what we
Yes, a
can call
good,
this
good fit for
podcast.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I screen for very, very hard is she is willing to say her limits. I'm sure you guys have lots of experience with women or submissives who are just like, you can do whatever you want to me. And you're like, no, no, stop. There are some things I can't do to you. And she's like, no, you can do anything you want, daddy. And you're like, okay, for fuck's sake, can I shoot you
That's
and stab
very
you?
dangerous waters to sail in.
That's that's what I mean. And it's also it tells me that I can't necessarily feel safe with this person yet, because how do I know that in the middle of BDSM or me doing something, she's not going to, not be enjoying it, but she's like, well, I said he can do whatever he wants. I guess I just have to put up with this. Like that tells me that that person isn't very good at being assertive or doesn't know how to say, I don't want to do this and this is what I want. And that's fine. You can still work with that. I've had plenty of partners who say to me, do whatever you want. But every single time I have this discussion with them, and it's an ongoing discussion, and because I don't trust them yet, like I don't trust the statement, do whatever you want to me. That is an inherently dangerous and I'll say innocent statement. Like it's a naive statement. Every time, yeah, when we do go to the bedroom, I will then ask them a million times. Like I'll stop in the middle of BDSM or sex and say like, how are you feeling? How is this? What would you like next? What's something you didn't like? And I will try and generate that conversation of getting them to figure out like, what are my limits? Because everyone has limits. A lot of
Mhm.
people just don't know them yet.
Yes, and if I may add, I mean, for everyone listening, this statement is not necessarily a bad thing that someone is doing. Okay, I want to clear out that is usually it reveals someone that is projecting from their own mind. Well, I would never do something that is bad, so this person will never do something that I would consider bad. Problem is, you cannot read minds, so you'll never know exactly, and that's why if you still work with this position, it's just going to be a little bit more of safety checks. I mean, those have to be always in there, but yeah, I understand it when you have a script, when you have a play that you went through it, and you are like dictating the scene, the tempo and the pace, and all of a sudden you have to be like, okay, well, this wasn't scripted. I went a little bit freestyling, so let me check exactly fine. You need to keep all those windows open in your mind. It might be a little bit less immersive as an experience, but
Mm,
that's is still what you work with.
mm,
Yeah. I, I, I hesitate that I say that I require them to be able to communicate and like say their limits and stuff. Um, I guess I'm looking for more for a willingness. Like you are open to having this conversation because maybe they don't have
yes.
the skills to do that yet. And that's fine because I have the skills to facilitate this conversation and I will pull those things out of you. I just need you to
Yeah.
be willing to have the conversation with me, being on the same team, using your line, Andy, that you say all the time, like somebody that wants to play on the same team and work through this together. The other thing that I'm often looking for is a willingness to learn. So, especially if you don't have
Hmm.
these skills, you want to learn them so that this can be a um, better experience. And just as we do as DOMs, and definitely all of us probably did in the beginning, had a huge ego and thought we were the best at sex or best at doing this stuff. And we're like, well, we're going to do it this way. And I don't need to learn anything new, especially if the other person's more experienced. I don't need to learn that. No. Women can also have an ego when they're coming into the bedroom, like, oh, I know how to do this already. Like, I don't need any direction from you. And it's like, well, let's just be open minded here. So definitely looking
Yeah.
for open mindedness as well.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's something I call the ability of being coached, because
Mm,
sometimes you literally have to explain someone that they are that convinced that they are doing it right, but no, this is not how you do it. Maybe you saw some adult movie, some stuff, or reading some blog of someone that explained to you wrong, or you got the wrong idea from it. And all of a sudden you're like, well, let me show you how it's done, and you take it personally, and you're like, wait, what do you mean I don't know how to do it? So I can imagine roles reversed, like someone spanking a girl, and the girl's like, "Well, that's not how you spank a woman. Let me show you." The guy will be absolutely ego crushed, and like you say, Brandon, it happens the same for women. So the ability of getting coached—that's something that I also look forward because, oh boy, what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna sit there and just pretend that I like something that clearly I have a conflict with. So and it's actually a great sign when someone is willing to take a step back and see what the other person how
Mm.
the other person wants it. Not necessarily has to be the correct way. It's not that, well, you didn't spank me at the exactly 72 degrees angle, so, well, your technique is valid. It's I like prefer it more that way. So you're coaching someone, you're training someone to deliver it in the ways you want. And as a dom,
Mm.
that's something that sometimes is overlooked. The ability also as a dom to be coached, because the sub is coaching you. Is not topping you from the bottom. Is literally coaching you as like push the buttons in this sequence.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
this is something that I think, if we also want to make a connection from the last video, it's an ability that in both dominance and submissives, it's quite important in my opinion.
Yeah, because we're
Yeah.
both speaking up for our needs. We're like clarifying, like, hey, here's my need. Like, I want to be pleased in this way. And here's the way you can actually do it. And if you do it that way, you will fulfill my need. The problem is a lot of times anybody, it doesn't matter, Dom, sub, whoever, we assume we know how to meet that other person's needs. And so we do it in the way that
Yeah.
we think we're, supposed to do it. And then it doesn't work. It doesn't fulfill their need. And we're like, well, I did the thing. And I was like, well, actually, you didn't. You didn't do it in this way that actually fulfills it for me. So, I
Yeah.
guess what I'm looking for in that other person is the willingness to actually listen to what my needs are. Like, as much as I'm listening to her and like trying to facilitate this experience, that she's also listening to me and wants to, finds pleasure and excited to meet those needs.
Yeah. I think people get so caught up in like, I have to be a good dom, or I have to be a good sub, or I have to do it the right way. I have to be correct in this. I have to be an expert. And they forget that each individual partner that you're with is a human being who's completely unique. They have their own preferences, their own likes, their own dislikes. Like, they are a unique person. And so for me, BDSM is more about figuring out how we fit together rather than me doing it right and her being a good girl and shutting up and doing it the right way. Like, I try not to look at things in terms of like, you're doing it correct or you're doing it right. It's like, no. How can we fit together and have the best experience possible, or like a beautiful, wonderful, great experience? And part of that is communication. Part of that is like, you guys are talking about humility, really. You call it coachability, but it's like humility. The humility to say as a dom, I don't know everything. I definitely don't know everything about you because you're a new fucking partner. I don't know jack shit about you. And the submissive to say, I don't know anything about you because you're a new dominant. I don't know how you like to do things. I know how I like things and I can communicate that to you, or you can help me communicate that. You know what you like and you communicate that to me. And then we see if we're a good match, if we fit together, or how we can fit together.
Yeah. And if we don't fit, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person or
Thank you for
what
fucking saying that.
Yeah, because what I see a lot in dating is like, oh, this person wasn't a good match for me, so that means they're a shitty person. And like,
Can I drop?
Yes.
I get so like passionate about the topic of red flags. Motherfuckers will just say, this is a red flag. This is a red flag. Oh my God, he did that. That's a red flag. Oh my God, she did that. That's a red flag. It's like, no, that's just something you're not into. One person's red flag is another person's green flag. You're being judgmental as fuck when you say like, red flag, that person's a bad person. They're evil. They're bad. I would never date him. And it's like, yeah, but the next woman would. So yeah. I interrupted.
Yeah, 100%. And looking for people that like accept differences, are able to work with that. And then, yeah, if we're not a good fit, wonderful. If you want something that I don't, wonderful. Let's part ways. It was great meeting you. And hopefully we find the people that we're looking for. As I was saying before, though, like some of those might match. And then we just have a level of relationship where we flow well together. And like, we don't have to push it beyond that and to an area where those are going to become real problems.
Yeah, I mean, also to add, that's a great point also you made, Andy, about the other person will, of course, guys, we're speaking about a certain type of relationship, a certain type of dynamic in a relationship between two persons, two, three, whatever, you know. Of course, geography helps because if you live in rural Montana, I'm very sorry, you know, beautiful place, but I'm not really sure it's very conclusive for this type of relationship lifestyle we want to all have. So mm, that's, I mean, sometimes I get some comments, some emails like, well, where I can find these parties, the stuff that you talk about, or like, where do you live, my friend? So maybe I've been in your area and I know all the places. Well, I am in middle of fuck nowhere. I'm in Bath, UK, you know? I'm like, wait, what? It's like, hey, it's a very small city, so perhaps you might have a little bit more success with London or Manchester, you know, for my UK friends, or I don't know, in Europe, or even down in Australia. I'm pretty sure if you live in the middle of the bush, it's gonna be a little bit hard to have this type of mindset that we're sharing now, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just not enough people there. Let's talk a little bit about how to actually screen, because that was the topic. Like, how can you actually find someone? I think maybe the first thing I would say, if you're a dominant or you're just getting into BDSM and you feel that you're gonna be dominant, I think the very first thing to think about would be, what dynamic do you think you might enjoy? Like, what would you as the dom like? What kind of partner might you like? What kind of qualities might you like? Do you think you'd want someone who's a very good girl, or do you think you'd prefer someone who's a little bit bratty and naughty and you might have to spank her and discipline her? Like, figure out some things that might be fun for you. And if you're not sure, just do some Googling, like literally just Google it, and then start communicating that or looking for that, because you can very much, like, through your dating profile, if you're going to do it online, or through the words that you say or the communication style that you have, you will attract that type of person. Like, it will just happen. It's funny that people say opposites attract. It's like, no, like, people attract the thing that they hold in mind. Whatever you're holding in mind, whatever you think the other person will be, or whatever you want, that's who you're going to attract. So figure out what you want and then communicate and, like, put that out there.
Yeah, I'm going to say two things to this. One, I want to follow up on what you just said. When you ask yourself what you want, especially in the very beginning, hold that very loosely. And when you go on these dates, be a little more open to experience other things, because you might find things that you didn't realize you actually wanted through these experiences. This is kind of, again, being biased towards non-monogamy, where you can date multiple people. You can kind of try out different personalities and dynamics and be like, well, I actually kind of enjoy this dynamic a little more. And that's just going to give you more experience in the future to start honing in closer to what you want. When you're starting to get a really good idea of what you want, then yes, I fully recommend putting as much information about what it is that you want out there, kind of like planting a flag and saying like, this is what I want. And anybody that's like that is going to be like, oh, I'm like that. And they come that way. If you go to my FetLife profile, Brandon the Dom, you'll see in my bio, like I have specifically the qualities and personality traits and values that I'm looking for. And it's a pretty fat list, and it could look pretty judgmental, like, oh, that's a lot. He's asking for a lot, but it screens in
I've
the
seen
people
job
that are
listings
those.
with less details than that.
Yeah, it's long. But the people that actually read through it and I go on a date with, they are very, very good matches. And so by the time we're on the date, we're already jiving really well. So put it out there.
Yeah, I think Brandon, you nailed it on the head. This is something I noticed you do very right, having very clear, crisp details. The idea I always had in my head is like you need to know what you want, because when you know what you want, everything else, the path gets illuminated. I say, you know, because it's if you have to fly an airplane and you know the destination, you know, very good chances that you're gonna get there. It's not that, well, you know, just gonna get attracted to my destination. That's not how it works, you know, because when you deal with a lot of variables, which, you know, humans tend to have, it's you need to be extremely clear with what you want. And once you tried, well, I tried a little bit of this, I tried a little bit of that. That's why my general advice is I encourage you to try everything. Not if you don't feel that a tinge of submissiveness inside you, that I would say, well, maybe you're a switch, so have a shot at it. If you don't have a tinge of that, it's just like, well, you have to explore your dominance more deeply and find out what you like, and then once you know it, you just go 100% on it, because that's the first part. And when you know what you want, you screen for everything else. You're just. I remember I was trying to date this girl. She was smoking hot. It was absolutely a head turner, but she was a switch. That in reality she was a dom. Okay, she was female dominant, but she was presenting herself as a switch. So when we were arguing about what we do on a date, we were always going against each other basically, and we
Mm.
we never dated, we never did anything because it would have just been a waste of time for both, you know. And that happened because I knew exactly what I wanted from out of that, you know. And I was able, look, it makes my heart cry not having a date with a beautiful woman like you, but what's the point?
There are, to piggyback off what you were saying, there are 3 stages of figuring out what you want, or like getting what you want. The first stage is just figuring out what you want in the first place. And for that, I would say experiment, try a few different things, be open to different experiences and all of that. The second stage is admitting that to yourself and accepting that in yourself. Some people do that stage very easily. Other people will wrestle with it for months, years, decades, their entire life. They will shame themselves. They will guilt trip themselves. They'll say, that's bad. I shouldn't want that. Or like they will worry that other people will judge it. And they'll go, is this okay for me to want this? So that's the second stage, admitting it in yourself that you want it. And then the third stage is fucking telling people, putting it out there. So again, first stage, figuring out what you want, just experiment, try some things. Accept that part of yourself that you want this. I'm allowed that as long as it's good for other people and good for me. Beautiful. I can have that. Third stage, putting it out there and actually saying, this is what I want.
Yeah, there's in each of those stages, there's like a challenge that you're going to have to overcome. Like the first stage is awareness. Like you need to be self-aware enough to know what it is that you actually want. In our book, we talk a lot about awareness and like exercises to help you, like doing an erotic journal and helping you to start figuring out what that is. And then that second stage, you're working through shame, accepting in yourself, like, okay, this is a part of me and it's okay to do this. And you have to work through those things, especially if you start trying to do them in the bedroom, having that confidence to do it. And that third stage, then you have to be okay with the fact that that other person may leave. You may say, these are my needs. These are the things I want. That person does not want to meet them. That person actively rejects them. You still have to be okay and be like, okay, I will go find somebody else now. So each one of those is going to be a challenge.
Yeah. For the submissive
Definitely.
too, they go through that same 3-stage journey as well.
Yeah, I think it's a not common process of discovery for both dominants and submissives, because like, well, what do I want? It's like you could find a link with life. That's at least how I figure it out. It's like, well, what do I want? Well, I don't know. Such a broad question, Well, let's go drill into specificity. What I want from this, and that. And if you cannot find still an answer, well, let's do an inversion. What I don't want to happen, And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I definitely don't want to be on my force getting spanked. It was like, voila, we already have somewhere to go. So you start to build on the things. And again, it's something that it's like micro steps, and it's those micro side quests to build yourself. You're gonna find those micro challenges. One is awareness, one is being original and true to yourself. All those steps that require you to unlock a part of yourself that requires journaling, self-reflection, putting yourself out there, dealing with the rejection, because again, you're gonna say to potential partners, hey, daddy, I want to do this, I want to do that, and by the way, I also want to be non-monogamous. And people are simply gonna leave because they don't want to take the deal, and that's perfectly fine. Trust me, it's much better someone that doesn't waste your time and tell you right away, no, look, I don't want this, I'm not finding someone that drags you Or it's like, well, let's talk about this. Let's see it again. It's like imagine you're closing a business deal, and someone right away says, no, look, we're not interested in this. Thank you very much, Instead of, well, send me some samples. Let's have a talk in the next quarter. Or the board, they give us the budget, but maybe next year if you can wait. I'm like, Jesus Christ, no. It's just like, sorry, that doesn't work for me, because also, what do you want? No? So
Mm.
that's it's an adventure in the adventure itself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just had a coaching call the other day, and I was explaining to this guy that, like, how early to have these conversations and like how early to be telling the other person what you want, especially ones that are probably going to be deal breakers for people. And I was like, early as you are comfortable doing. Like the earlier
Yes.
the better, because just as Mario is saying, you are basically going to not waste each other's time. And you're going to save yourself from a lot of pain and resentment that build up when you're trying to get needs matched that fundamentally do not work at the foundation of the
Oh, yeah.
relationship.
Yeah, don't procrastinate the screening. I have this conversation with people that I coach with just regular dating where they're like, oh, I want something non-monogamous with people. Like I want to see multiple people at once. When should I say that? I'm too scared to say that immediately. I should wait, right? And it's like, what? Wait until you've got your little hooks in her and she's like addicted to you or something. Like you're giving her free cocaine or free fucking methamphetamines and be like, when she's addicted to me, then I'll tell her the truth. And it's like, look, I get that you're nervous. I get that you're scared. But if this is a deal breaker for her, it's going to be a deal breaker for her. It will still be a deal breaker 6 months from now if you tell her then. It's just then she might be addicted to you and she might stick around and then fucking hate you for 6 months or a year before finally her friends convince her to leave you because you're a fuckboy and all of that. And like, get that over with immediately. Don't procrastinate this screening. And that definitely applies in BDSM. It's like you want to say this stuff upfront as you possibly can, either in your dating profile or the first couple of conversations that you have. Or if you're really nervous, fine, that's okay. At least try and say it on the first date. And we'll forgive you. Like, we're not going to judge you if you struggle to say it on the first date. I struggled with a lot of this stuff to be upfront. It's something that took me quite a while to become upfront. Like, it's okay if you struggle too, but just try really hard. You will save yourself a lot of time the more upfront and early you can be. And you will have other people actually start to tell you that they're grateful for you.
Yes.
And that's when this becomes really rewarding. You will tell people immediately upfront what you're looking for or who you are or what kind of dynamic you want or, any of those sort of like deal breakers. You'll say them immediately. And you'll have some people say, hey, that's not what I'm looking for. But thank you for being really honest with me. And you go, oh shit, okay. Like I'm actually getting positive feedback. I'm not getting like brutally rejected. A lot of the time in dating and definitely BDSM, what people call brutal rejection is really just that they waited a long time to tell a deal breaker to someone. And then that person is like, what do you mean you don't want kids? We've been seeing each other for 2 years and now you tell me you don't want kids, you fuck. And it's like, well, you didn't ask. Like you both did that to each other. So the more upfront you can be, the easier this goes.
Yeah, and those are deal breakers, by the way. We're not talking about negotiation things or like, oh, who does the dishes on Tuesday, That that is stuff that is quite the fundamentals of things to work on. And same in BDSM, there are things that are fundamentals that are deal breakers. Like, okay, monogamy is one of those, monogamy, non-monogamous, it's one of those. The roles in the dynamic, okay, who's the submissive, who's the dom, how this is going to play, how we are going to portray ourselves at parties, at plays, if we do them. Another important thing is like negotiating pleasure, meaning like, okay, there are things that perhaps I'm not really into, but they're not such a big deal for me that you're into, and you can talk about those, but you have to be, again, upfront. And if you're willing, you don't know much, please, absolutely have the courage to discover and to try things, because that's one of the most beautiful things you can learn from this experience. At least I speak for personal experience and anecdotal experience of other people, but that's literally like the things that you can negotiate, and not the deal breakers that are going to be literally like, well, I actually want to have, I don't know, multiple partners at the same time in the same room. And you're like, that's not really our role. So literally that's a fundamental part, and also it builds you up. That's something I learned about myself, is that the more I said out loud what I wanted and what I wasn't fine with, the more I felt better in my own skin. Like, yeah, you get rejected, it happens. But always remember when I was like, well, I like to go to this party, and I like to go to this special room where it's gonna be me and four other girls, and do this and that. And it's like, well, I'm not really fine with that. It's like, you know. So yeah, that's how it is. Just I implore you all to take time to discover what you want, what you need, what makes you feel good, and just roll with it no matter what. And if people don't accept it, that's fine. I mean, there's more than 6 billion of us.
Yeah. All of this is us basically saying you're allowed to just talk about all of this with a potential submissive. I think that's the other thing. With BDSM, with relationships in general, but especially with BDSM, people see the potential partner as like the other. There's this big like wide chasm between the dominant and the submissive a lot of times, and people go like, oh, I can't just like talk to the submissive about what she wants. I can't talk about what I want. I have to just find a good girl and then like she's my submissive. You can just talk about this. You can, if you're in
We
my Google
are
just fucking my OK Google just started fucking talking. You shut your fucking mouth, bad submissive. Discipline later.
Yeah, some slave training. Put the machine back in its place.
We're gonna need to discipline that later. But yeah, you can just talk about this stuff. And if you're in the discovery stages, you can say, I'm still learning. I'm still figuring out what I'm looking for. What kind of things do you look for in a dominant? Here's the things I think I'm looking for in a submissive. Like your submissive or your potential submissive is allowed to be on the same team as you. In fact, we encourage it, and they can help you with this in the same way that we say that to submissives. Like, you don't have to have it all fucking figured out, especially people like dominants like us. It's like, come to us if you have no idea. I'm talking to a girl off Hinge right now who's never done any kink or BDSM or anything. And she literally said to me, I have no idea about BDSM. I've thought about it. I've fantasized. I have some things I know I'm into. I don't know shit. And I'm really nervous and I'm shy and I'm scared. And I'm like, cool. Like, what do you think might be on your bucket list? And she's like, I don't know. Like getting restrained, maybe? I don't know. And I'm like, cool, we can talk about it. We can have conversations. We can figure it out. So yeah, this is allowed to be a process of discovery together. And we would encourage that, especially when you're at the start and you're still figuring things out.
Yeah, I always am like trying to find that quality of one, being willing to have the conversation, and we're going to do it on the same team. So like if you're a new submissive, you're willing to have that conversation, be coachable, and like go through that discovery phase together. If you're somebody who's been a submissive before and has been in the lifestyle a long time, great. We can also have that conversation. Just be willing to do that negotiation, work together, not trying to, it's important that you're asserting your needs, but you're willing to, again, negotiate. We're building something together. We're not going against each other to try and like battle each other, find loopholes to get our needs met, things like that. And I try and keep that as like an underlying structure through the entire relationship. So as time goes on and we start to get deeper, we're continuing to return to these conversations about what our needs are, what our desires are, and even the same like non-negotiables that I presented in the beginning of the relationship of like, hey, these might be a problem down the road if we're not on the same page. I'm going to keep bringing them up at like different stages of the relationship, just to like check in. Are you sure about this? Would you like to keep going in this relationship?
Yes.
Or if we're going deeper, I'm really serious that these are non-negotiables. It's not going to work if you're not okay and on board with it. So again, that's really important to me, is that willingness to have the conversation, but then have it ongoing. And we're on the same team as we're doing it. Because part of the purpose of a Dom-Sub relationship is like, we're in this relationship to reach a shared goal. And that might be just mutual pleasure for the both of us. But if we're doing, a deeper dynamic. It's to build a life that others probably are going to look down on, but between us two, it's super fulfilling. And we have to be on the same team for that. So if you're not willing to have these conversations, to negotiate, to find ways to meet each other's needs, it's never going to work.
I always make the example of where you see the movie with the Joker and Harley Quinn. It's like you will see two psychos from the outside, but in their little world, everything is to the extreme that actually people look down on that because of jealousy. That they don't have that intensity of emotions and strength of emotions. So literally, you said it right. It's in every relationship, whether it's monogamous, non-monogamous, whether it's a committed relationship, is a long-term relationship, or is I don't want to say a one-night stand. Let's call it a short-term relationship. It's there is always a moment where we're going to be a team. There's going to be always a moment where we have a shared goal. So that's, in my opinion, that's what makes a team, having a shared goal and we work together towards it. So it's literally like, hey, team, how are we going to do this? When when you play team sports, and well, of course, you want to win as a team sport. Whether you play basketball, football, whatever, and you're just gonna be like, okay, what I'm good at, what is gonna be my role, what is your role, what are you gonna be good at, and let's talk about how we're gonna be working towards that. There is not like, well, I want to do this, so the other person in my team is just an anchor dragging it down. That's when you have classic dysfunctions of a team. That's when people start to do their own little side quests. You have departments in corporations that become little thieves, little kingdoms. So I don't know. It's something for me that if the other person isn't willing to team up in order to achieve the same goal, it's literally something like, oh, you're either getting used or the other person has other goals than the ones that they stated or that you shared and they agreed upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say it's perfectly beautiful to have an agenda. Just tell the other person what your agenda is.
Yeah. But I, especially now, something that I screen for much more than I did in the beginning is emotional maturity. And I think that like underlies a lot of what we're talking about here, because if they don't have emotional maturity when I'm saying maybe no to one of their needs, like I don't want to meet that, but let's try something else. If they collapse into their ego and are not able to hear that, then like we're not going to be able to do this. We're also talking about, being upfront about our intentions, about our agenda. If you were trying to manipulate, and maybe you're not doing this out of malice, you might be doing it because you just don't have the emotional maturity yet to navigate your own emotions and speak up for your needs and those sorts of things. So you're trying to do it in some, backwards way instead of just being upfront about it. If you're doing that and you're not okay with me, like, hey, gently calling this out and be like, what's going on here? Like, I'm trying to figure out what you're actually doing. What's your motivation? I may want to meet that need, but you got to speak up for it. But if they're, still trying to hide it or go around that backwards way, this is not gonna work. I just don't do that anymore. I don't want to do that or deal with it anymore.
Brandon, can you give a very quick definition of emotional maturity, like you would explain to a 5-year-old? Because I noticed when I use those words, we think the three of us would agree on the same term, on the same definition. What I noticed that some people have, their own take on that.
Sure. It would be being able to set your ego aside enough to listen and hear the other person in what they're speaking in either their needs or their feelings, and not getting caught up in what they're saying, being able to have that separation still, but then able to still work with that other person in what they're saying. and not letting your own emotions or trauma or anything else, block you from do that. You're able to do that cooperation without their emotions taking you over and your own emotions taking you over.
Can I give my definition? Because mine's slightly different. That's why I love that you said, Mario, like, what are the differences? For me, what I'm looking for when I look for emotional maturity is that they want me to be on the same team as them. So I'm completely okay if they get emotional and have like a tantrum and their ego gets in the way and all of that. If at the end of that, or even during it, they're able to say, I'm so mad right now. I'm just so angry at you and I don't want to be. Or I'm so upset by this. I'm just really bothered. Just give me some space. Like, that is treating me on the same team. You're saying, I'm going to communicate to you what I'm feeling. I'm pissed off at you right now, but just give me some space and then I'll come back and we'll talk about it and it will be okay. I'm like, cool, you're just angry right now. That's okay. Like, I get angry sometimes. That's cool. But if the person shuts down and goes within themselves and you say, hey, is everything okay right now? And they don't answer, or they get passive aggressive. So passive aggressive is one of the things that I screen out. Like, I do not date anyone who's passive aggressive, and that's if you're passive aggressive, that's okay. But it is just like one of the biggest things that I screen for. Like, maybe the biggest thing that I screen for, because when you're being passive aggressive, there's a little part of your brain that is telling you this other person right now is my enemy. Yeah. And I can't, like, I would literally prefer, this might sound like a funny way of saying it, not aggression, but like overt. I would prefer someone to overtly say, I'm pissed off at you right now. Like, you might call that aggressive. And then I'm like, cool, thank you for communicating with me. I get pissed off sometimes too. But if someone's like, no, it's fine, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I'll give them chances. I'll try and help them. I'll coach them when they're feeling better. But like, if it's something that's just their communication style is to be passive aggressive and they don't seem to be willing to work on it, and when we talk about it, they just say like, no, it's fine, I don't want to deal with, like, that to me is a deal breaker. So I'm completely okay with people not being emotionally mature as long as they want to become that. Because I didn't start out emotionally mature. Yeah,
I would say that is emotional maturity, like having the awareness of your emotion, because you're saying they're like stating the emotion and then they're saying, hey, I need to be in this emotion for a while and then I can come and work on a team with you. Like, they're not attacking you and saying this emotion is because of you, you're wrong, this is like, everybody's taking responsibility for their own emotions and then we're going to work through it later.
Yes, they're not back gaslighting you into like, no, what you're doing is wrong. No, your emotions are wrong. So that's a great point. In my opinion, it's three things. Like, so first of all, is self-awareness. So you are in your emotions. You're like, what I'm feeling it. Second is thoughtfulness. Is like, why I'm feeling this. And three is the empathy that you feel towards the other person. So it's the ability, like, to put you aside. And it takes time to learn that. Okay, it's something, especially if you come from a very emotional background where you feel strong emotions, like all an Italian can do. That's the first thing is to start to shake your hands and scream and raise your voice 50 decibels higher. It's literally like you need to learn and like, okay, well, thank you for sharing. What makes you feel like that? What did they say that made you say this?
Yeah.
So, and again, this is great because when we talk about ego getting involved, and especially when there are intimate part exposed, or there are vulnerabilities, whether they're physical or emotional, is extremely simple for people to get defensive. Okay, and start to, like I said, use all the tools that we have to deal with this, usually when we're not 100% self-aware, whether it's gaslighting, passive aggressiveness, stonewalling, or whatever. So, and if you read about the relationships, those things then are the precursors of resentment, which is one of the poisons of relationships. So it's definitely, having emotional maturity. It's definitely an amazing quality to have, because it means you have done such an amount of work. It is literally like, I don't want to say perhaps the apex of what you should be aiming to, but definitely it's an amazing tool to have in your tool belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
I want to
I'll
squeeze
quickly
this in.
jump in.
Okay.
Okay, you
Go ahead.
squeeze yours in, and I will squeeze mine in.
Well, I think mine's a little longer, so just go ahead.
Okay,
It-
I'll squeeze. Hey,
Aha! If we all squeeze it in at the same time.
how dare you say yours is longer? Okay, it's not how long it is. All right, it's what you do with it. Anyway, listen. So my point that I'm squeezing in, it's a perfectly normal length. Okay, thank you. Fuck. My point that I was going to squeeze in is we're not saying that we're looking for a partner who's perfect and emotionally mature and good at that. We're looking for someone who wants to work on it. And so that's one of the things that I screen really hard for. Someone who's into self-improvement or self-growth, or at least open to the idea of evolving and growing, because I'm into that. And so that's something that I look for. I think in a BDSM dynamic especially, you want to grow together, even if that's just casual.
Yeah. So a perspective that I have that you guys don't is I went through a marriage, and something like one of the reasons like I screen so hard for emotional maturity now is because I've done so much work to get there, because I was not emotionally mature like when I was in my marriage. I was the opposite of Mario, where I stuffed everything and did not blow up, and was just, stonewall, stoic. I'm not going to share any of this, or a little bit of passive aggressiveness. And that doesn't help anything in the relationship move forward either. And so I got better about that through the relationship. Like, shout out to my ex-wife, wonderful woman, to help me kind of work through that and work together and build these skills together. And then when I started dating afterwards, continuing to build those and just recognizing that how much dysfunction the relationship creates, even in the beginning when somebody's not able to have these conversations. And a lot of times it's because they're being shut down for, whatever emotion that they're having, or something's hitting their ego or whatnot. And like, if we get very practical, like in a casual relationship, one of the reasons that emotional maturity really helps is like if you're talking about things that you're into, kinks and whatnot, if you say, hey, I'm not into that, they're not going to be like, well, I feel super rejected right now, and like, I don't want to do anything. It's like, well, wait a minute. We're like, we're just talking here, like trying to find things where you're like, or one of the things that always still gets me is like being ghosted. I super love when, if we're not going to continue the relationship, I get a text that says, hey, I don't really want to continue this. They don't even have to like give me a reason, but just sending that text shows a little bit of emotional maturity. Like, you have some empathy for the other person on the side of this, and just letting them know. Wonderful. That's great. In a long-term relationship, that emotional maturity is going to show up every time that you guys are having your conversations, negotiating things within the relationship. Every time you guys have a disagreement, that's where it's going to be even more crucial, because it's like, now we need to work through this disagreement. And if we can't, both be emotionally mature, not collapse, not get stuck in our egos, we're never going to be able to work through this. And we're just going to keep having it over and over and over and over again. Ideally, your relationship gets better over time because you work through all these little disagreements, and you build the strength to like have these conversations with each other. So that's why it's like one of the top things definitely for me that I screen for.
Anything you guys want to add before we start wrapping up? Anything we haven't talked about?
I'm pretty sure some of the guys, especially the guys that follow you from the dating side, Andy, are gonna be like, "Yeah, great! I love what Beard Man and Bald Man and Italian Man are saying." So, but how don't find good sub? Give me detail. So perhaps we can make a quick dive into best practices, or how we are meeting submissives in real life.
So I'll talk about me. On Hinge, I have a very BDSM profile. I make it very clear what I'm looking for. I screen really hard, and then I just talk to people. Like, a big part of this is the messaging and texting stage, and then obviously going on a date. It's really when I go on a date that I can get a feel for a person. But I will ask lots of questions, like, obviously presenting BDSM as the first thing that people see. I say, do you have experience with it, or is it something you'd like to be shown? what's on your bucket list? Have you taken the BDSM test, which is just a test that gives you like some idea of some of the dynamics that you as a submissive might be into, or you as a dom might be into? And then when we go on a date, I just talk about it. I say like, what BDSM stuff have you always wanted to try? What's on your bucket list? What have you not tried? Or we might talk about that over texting. I also have a whole bunch of photos that I've done because I do a lot of photography and I do a lot of photo shoots of the BDSM. And obviously all the women are happy for me to share those photos. And I will share them with a potential new partner and say, hey, here's a lot of my play sessions. Here's what's involved. Which of these appeal to you? So really for me, it's just a discussion. And then with women I meet in public, I just have that discussion over text as well. So if I meet a woman and hit on her in public, like one of the girls that I'm seeing right now, I literally met her outside. One of the first messages I send is like, hey, I'm looking for something non-monogamous, something, BDSM related. If that's what you're into, beautiful. If not, that's cool. And then we just start talking from there. So for me, it's just talking. And then I get a feel for who the person is.
Because I put out so much content, and a lot of it has like my philosophies in it, especially if I'm dating somebody from FetLife, a lot of them have been pre-screened through that and they're obviously already into BDSM. So I kind of know those things a lot. And so when I go on the date, it's more finding out their personality and like, are we going to jive in those ways? And then our desires, are we going to be able to jive in those ways as well? But I have dated women from the apps, and very similar structure to you, Andy, where I'm very upfront about like I'm looking for BDSM and I'm looking for something casual. And if they're okay with those things, I let them know like, hey, I have other partners, and I'm telling these things like on the date as well. And then we're also talking about things that we might be into. A lot of times they're brand new to this world. So I'm just trying to find out what things they might want to explore and kind of tell them how this works a little bit, the process of negotiation and safe words and things like that. So they kind of get an idea, and then we can talk about exploring. As we get deeper into the relationship, I guess I kind of have like check marks of when I'm bringing up other deal breakers, because I'm like, hey, we're getting a little deeper now. We should kind of talk about these things if we're thinking about a deeper relationship. And so if I'm starting to do that, I set up like monthly check-ins with my partner, and we'll basically talk about the status of our relationship. It's kind of like address State of the Union address of our relationship, if you will. And we're trying to like work through whatever disagreements are happening. But in that, I'm bringing up like, here's some deal breakers. Like if we continue to go down this relationship, I'm going to continue to be non-monogamous. I don't want kids in the future. I'm very ambitious, and like I'm putting my face up, all over the internet here. And if you don't want to be a part of that, that's beautiful. That's okay. But if you're going to be with me, that's a part of it. So sharing those things. So each stage, basically trying to be upfront as possible, and filtering out people that don't want those things.
Thank you, Brenda, for telling me that, because I wanted to share something about you guys that perhaps is a little bit unique to y'all, both with what you do in your dating profiles or fat life, but you both are very polarizing personalities, let's say something like that. So by just being yourself, you're gonna filter a lot, because not everybody's gonna be fine with associating themselves with a sex worker, like you guys, for example. Not everybody's gonna be fine with someone that puts out front like that traits of your sexuality. So it's like laws of marketing, basically. The more polarizing you are, the more your people find you, so you just need to have exposure, basically. So I mean, dating apps, yeah, and absolutely what you're doing, I mean, I think you should write a guide about dating guides, on dating apps. But
I
yeah,
have.
that's. Oh, did you?
Yeah, I've done tons. Yeah. My big Tinder guide.
No,
And I've done a BDSM one as well on
yeah,
YouTube.
of
Yeah.
course. I was being sarcastic.
I know.
I
I know, but
was
the audience
sending.
can't tell sarcasm through the internet.
Oh, okay. But no, guys, check it out because there's a lot of stuff that is there. I think that the guide got more people laid than I don't know.
Then
A
Jesus.
lot of dating coaches made it put it together. Ah, oh God.
So humble.
Yes. Oh my God. But or yeah, I mean, would you do Brandon? You put your teasers out on fat. So literally, like girls will be like, "Well, I'm chatting to this guy. I just spotted a photo of him yesterday night, recording a video with another girl." So it's literally like polarizing. And for the guys that don't have this polarizing effect, you just need to have a little bit of an edge, I suppose, and be willing also to talk about this stuff. So if you want to find a good sub, dating apps, great. Fat life, great, because you find play parties, munches, events, same like-minded people. What I noticed, it's very interesting to find. It's a little bit crazy, but you find good submissive people is usually art events, because I don't know, maybe the creativity in art is connected to the creativity in the bedroom, and the creativity, the sexual freedom expression. So that this could be a correlation, and it's not a causation, but I found that interesting, especially because I'm kind of real life, meeting real life kind of person rather than a screen. Although I benefited a lot, especially from Andy's guide. So if you haven't, go check it out. Basically, but yeah, that's something, and it's always kind of funny when you're in person and you want to talk about BDSM, and you have to find ways to pepper it into a conversation. So I think that's probably the best ways someone can find a good sub in real life. What you guys
We didn't
would
we didn't talk about this, but I've found that most women are into exploring parts of BDSM. And so someone doesn't have to fully know that they're a submissive or that they don't have to have any experience with this. I just said one of the girls that I'm talking to from Hinge literally right now has never tried any BDSM, doesn't understand anything about that world or the community or anything, but she's had fantasies and wants to start getting into it. And I've found that's pretty common. So I think even if you just start with some very general light stuff, like maybe you guys can try a blindfold, maybe you can try some gentle spanking. Like I've found most women, the vast majority of women, are willing to try bits of it and then will happily walk down that pathway with you and see what they're into. So, yeah, you could almost just say go find women. And women generally are pretty comfortable, most of them, with at least delving into bits of submissiveness.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of
absolutely.
myth breaking, like when you go on dates, because everybody has preconceptions about what BDSM is or dominance and submission is. And so you're going to do a lot of like myth breaking when you're on the date and be like, well, it doesn't have to be that. Like I have found same thing that a lot of submissive leaning women, they enjoy what I call vanilla plus, which is like just regular sex, but we do it a little rougher, or we throw in a couple
Hmm.
toys. And the majority of them, yes, there may be like little things that they don't like. Maybe they don't like their hair pulled, or maybe they don't like choking or something like in there, but they may like the rough idea of rough sex. And, we can talk about what is in there in that playset. But if you just bring up dominance without kind of that caveat of like, well, we can just try this out, we can start slow, we can, just do vanilla plus, as I'm saying. A lot of them are thinking like 24/7 dynamic. I'm a slave. I do everything that you say. Like, and I'm like, yes, that's a version of dominance and submission, BDSM, but that's like a very, very small minority of what we could do. Like, there's a small minority of people that practice that. And if that's something you want, we could work towards that. But there's actually this whole wide world, and we don't ever have to get to that, and we can still have tons of fun. So you kind of have to
Yeah,
like
man.
break their myths and open their mind to what's actually possible.
People have so many connotations around the word BDSM. I can't tell you how many times I've had a conversation with a woman where I'm like, "Oh, is BDSM something that you'd like to explore?" And she's like, oh no, that's abuse. Oh no, I'd never do that." And I'd be like, "Okay, cool. Like,
Yeah.
fair enough. It doesn't have to be that, but fair enough. Like, what about if I was to spank you a little bit and put handcuffs and blindfold?" And she's like, "Oh, that's hot." And I'm like, that's part of the BDSM world. And they're like, "Oh, is it really?" So people just have a lot of connotations with the word BDSM. I can't remember if I've ever told this story. I've told it previously. I don't think I've told it to you guys. My ex, Imi, I met her through like Tinder and I had a BDSM profile. That's why she matched with me. And one of the things that we used to do together was we would have a like couples profile where we'd have pictures of her and pictures of me and some BDSM in there. And we'd say, hey, we're a couple. We're looking for women to date together. One of her sister's friends found that profile, sent it to her sister, and then her sister literally like invited her out for lunch, didn't tell her why, just said, hey, let's have lunch. And, my ex Amy said like, cool, yeah, let's have lunch. Sat her down and like full on intervention was like, BDSM is abuse. You're with an abuser. Like this guy needs to go to jail. And she was like, what the fuck is this? What is going on? Like when did this happen? What are you talking about? And so like she was trying to basically explain to her sister, like, he doesn't abuse me. Like, it's consensual. We love each other. We care about each other and all of this kind of stuff. So extreme example, but a lot of people have a lot of connotations around the topic of just BDSM in general.
Yeah, I think the more you are into this, the more you're gonna hear these stories, or the more you're gonna go through the stories. Because, while you guys were telling this, all the situation I went through, like the dates were, oh no, you want to beat me? I'm like, not really, I mean, define beating, it's just like, what exactly are we beating here? So it's those kind of things that you literally have. I mean, that's why definitions, like, we all have a definition that we think we agree what it means, but most of the times is not, so that's why it's a trap of communication when it's like, yeah, of course, let's go become and let's do some BDSM, and oh my god, no, especially in after 50 Shades of Grey movie era, where the movie literally portrayed things in a way that I don't find it 100% correct. It's a little bit like, okay, let's cross some T's and dot some I's,
Yeah, I think, Andy, a question that you and I both ask is like something along the lines of like, what is dominance to you? What is submission to you? And that's usually a great question for me to ask, because then I get to understand what their definitions are, like what mental model they're playing with. And I can be like, well, it doesn't have to be that, and it can be this. And then there, a lot of times, pain comes up. Like, I'm not really into pain. And I know that, that's something that's like, well, we don't actually ever have to touch pain if you don't want. And actually pain can be pleasurable depending on how we do it. And like just explaining all these caveats as you go.
Yeah, the way that I phrase it to every new partner is the first question that I ask when I get their phone number off a dating app is, when you think of BDSM, what comes to mind for you? And then we start from that point. And then the next question is, well, what stuff do you want to do? What stuff do you not want to do? And we just go down that route. Let's start wrapping up. Do you guys want to shout out your social medias and your book?
Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna start myself because I'm taking a digital detox, so people cannot find me right now.
All right. You can find me at brandonthedom.com. You can also find Mario and I's book there. Either enter thedom.com or go to my website. You'll find it there. As well as I have lots of links to other social platforms, FetLife, and recently have started shooting OnlyFans content. So you can find me there as well.
Hell yeah. I appreciate both of you coming on. This was fun.
Pleasure is ours.